Vince McMahon will never work in wrestling again, and we need to talk about why to make sure it doesn't happen again. To put it plainly, if the allegations against Vince McMahon are true, he may well die in jail. We need to update you now on the allegations that Vince McMahon is facing, in addition to the more recent and publicised scandal raised by Janel Grant. A trigger warning is now in effect for rape, sex trafficking, sexual assault and some truly heinous sex acts. Vince McMahon conspired with other WWE executives to cover up the rape of a current WWE superstar. This is one of many allegations that were raised by former wrestler Ashley Massaro, who unfortunately died in 2019. He also stood accused of raping Rita Chatterton, a referee for the WWE, in his limousine in 1986. A WWE spokesperson stated that she was fired with cause around that time, but doesn't specify what that cause was. These are two of the allegations that are currently being investigated as part of a federal investigation into Vince McMahon. An investigation that may see Vince McMahon go to jail for so long that his life ends in internment. This investigation could have even further reaching implications, such as, for example, the WWE itself, so far reaching that it may result in a total shutdown of the WWE, because the investigation is not just into Vince McMahon, it is into a culture in the WWE that allowed allegations like this to happen in the first place. This is also before we even factor in the recent allegations, which include coercing someone into a threesome, sex trafficking, and defecating in their face without any consent involved. It is not believed at this time that the investigation will return to either the steroid scandal or allegations of child sexual abuse against the WWE, which were also raised in the 1980s when Vince McMahon was in charge. Let's dive into what's being investigated as we speak. Ashley Massaro was a WWE diva who won the Raw Diva Search in 2005. This was an on-air competition that was not based on wrestling talent in any way, and Massaro claims to have not only not been given wrestling training, but also to have been regularly denied wrestling training and blocked from indulging in her own wrestling training by Stephanie McMahon. Yes, Vince is not the only McMahon named in these allegations, nor is he the only McMahon being investigated. Massaro claims a number of things. Starting chronologically, she claims that money was extorted from her within the early days of her career, when she was instructed to give $50,000 of her $250,000 prize money to an unknown individual named Rich, who apparently represented her. News to Ashley Massaro. The contract is said to have come from John Laurinaitis. The extortion is said to have come from Vince McMahon. John Laurinaitis' name will come up a lot as well. What apparently followed were months of injuries, several concussions, and a workload that prevented Massaro from having any kind of personal life. There's an element of isolation in all of the allegations against Vince McMahon, and certain crossovers that we will get into. Trish Stratus was said to be one of the only supportive individuals to Ashley Massaro, though her advice was to shake it off. It's a stunning indictment of how bad the situation was when that is considered supportive. Stephanie McMahon is named multiple times as a person continually preventing Massaro from receiving training, even going so far as to block Massaro from training in private during her personal time. In all allegations at current, that is the extent of the allegations against Stephanie McMahon. I'm going to remind everyone once again of the earlier trigger warning. Massaro's affidavit against the WWE states that after being flown over to Kuwait for a tribute to the Truth Show alongside Maria Kanellis, Ron Simmons, Jimmy Hart and Gary Hart, Massaro was separated from the group, drugged into a state of conscious paralysis, raped and sodomized while a female soldier guarded the door to protect her assailant. The rape only ended when it was interrupted by Gary Hart. Upon returning to US soil, she was questioned by a WWE doctor named Dr. Rios. In my research, I was able to find a Dr. Ferdinand Luis Rios that appears multiple times in WWE literature, though his name doesn't appear too recently. He left the WWE shortly after Massaro. He confirmed some aspects of what Massaro stated, such as having no medical doctor travelling with wrestlers and relying on medical practitioners provided for them. This is said to have presented the opportunity, in the allegations posted, for Massaro to suffer in the way that she did. Vince McMahon is then said to have led a meeting in which he asked Massaro for details of what happened to her in Kuwait and encouraged her not to tell anyone else. To quote the affidavit, it was clear that there had already been a conversation and they had reached a decision on their own. In 2019, the WWE issued a statement denying that Vince McMahon or the WWE in general were aware of any such situation. However, some in WWE publicly disagreed with that statement and have done recently as well. John Laurinaitis, himself named in the accusations from Janel Grant, put out a statement through a spokesperson claiming, and I quote, "Johnny, like most upper-level management, at some time became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols are followed, including privacy for the alleged victim." This is in direct contrast to the statement issued. Former WWE wrestler Paul London has also been quoted as saying everyone wanted a piece of her, and corroborated a separate allegation from Massaro that Vince McMahon had asked her to use a company jet and had been knocking on the door of her hotel room at night. The real-life NCIS conducted their own investigation, which again, to me at least, raises questions as to how the WWE couldn't have known. The results were not made conclusive. A survey by the Pentagon found that in 2012, as an example here, there were approximately 26,000 different individuals sexually assaulted in the military, with only 3,374 reported. Further allegations from Ashley Massaro have recently been released by Vice, stating that after Massaro's appearance in Playboy, Vince McMahon turned his attention to her and made several vulgar sexual comments. He was also accused by Massaro of openly making out in public in locker rooms with other members of the Diva locker room. The current federal investigation being conducted now will have access to the NCIS investigation information, just to be clear on that one. All of that information will tie in together and will certainly raise questions about certain statements made by the WWE. It is their job and their role to investigate everything that the WWE has said publicly or privately, and this is one of the many reasons why it's not just Vince McMahon being investigated. As regards Rita Chatterton, less is known about the individual situation. Chatterton did file a lawsuit and McMahon settled within the same month to a multi-million-dollar amount. McMahon's attorney stated that Vince McMahon was innocent and settled to avoid the cost of litigation. This, however, is starting to establish, when it comes to the allegations at least, a pattern of behaviour. These situations do create an image of Vince McMahon, and the allegations made against him in many ways corroborate each other. What we do know, and what has been made public knowledge by the WWE, is that Vince McMahon used company funds to pay off several former members of staff. They actually mentioned this in their earnings report. This practice, this behaviour, comes up in both the Chatterton and Grant allegations. The name John Laurinaitis appears in both the affidavits of Grant and Massaro. Massaro and Grant both accuse McMahon of controlling behaviour and forcibly being controlled into secrecy. We've also seen members of the locker room at the time, such as Rene Dupree, stating who Vince McMahon was interested in and who Vince McMahon made a pass at. While this is still a situation where there are active allegations and an active investigation, there is suddenly a whole lot of information starting to come out from a number of different sources that corroborates each other. While this is not in itself evidence of anything, patterns do start to emerge. I'm not going to draw any conclusions there, but we are now at the part where I detail the answer to the question posed by this video. Will Vince McMahon go to jail? Put simply, the most likely answer is no, primarily due to his age and apparent frailty. A lawyer could very easily argue that jail time is not something that McMahon could physically handle, and they wouldn't necessarily be wrong about that. While he will never work in wrestling again, regardless of this, these allegations, if proven, would land McMahon firmly on the sex offenders registry and would see him unable to live or work with a range of people. The investigation is also very unlikely to be quick. There are years past and many allegations to go through, plus historical investigations need to be maintained, but forgotten in a lot of this is that the investigation is not just about Vince McMahon. Other names keep coming up. John Laurinaitis has been mentioned, Stephanie McMahon has been named, though not formally accused, and there are a number of unnamed current individuals in the Janel Grant case who may well be named in the days to come. Put as simply as possible, the WWE is in serious trouble. If these allegations are found to be true, a lot of people in the WWE are not just going to be fired, they're going to face jail time, and the entire structure of the WWE, as it is right now, could come crumbling down. If you want more details as to who Vince McMahon really is, check out the video on screen now from 2022, where I detail a lot of what is now becoming public knowledge. In the meantime, leave a comment below if you want me to dive deeper into this, and I'll see you next time.